Our last series was one of ups and downs, really just lots of emotions. Mostly highs though. It was a really fun series, and I anticipate that we are in store for another one for Freedom versus Superstars.
Yeah, it's going to be, a lot of it is just about how these teams are dealing with their changes. It's a lot of positive to be said about what has happened so far here at phase number 2 for Team Freedom, but not so much here for Superstars, as they are struggling to really find themselves now with Srey on this new role.
Superstars seems to be pretty patient with what they need to do. They know that they have made a lot more adjustments than that has come in for Team Freedom. So I have hope for them yet. It's just, when do things click into place for them? That seems to be the main question for them. Let's check in with the updated standings for North America, because after that victory, Gale Force Esports is sitting at 4-0 on top of the leaderboard here of North America, with No Tomorrow just behind 3-1.
And as we look at the rest, it's just kind of a middle-of-the-pack section, and then again, we find ourselves with Naventic and Even in Death yet to be able to find themselves a win, but they still have the opportunity to do so this week.
If Team Freedom wants to be able to contest one of the spots, this series has to be a victory for them. They are at 2-1. They did lose to No Tomorrow, though, so they still have a lot of the big league teams to go up against. One of those is later on this weekend, too, Gale Force Esports. Did I just do it again?
Out of all of our sports ball references, that is by far the best one. I actually really like that one. We should, let's call them the big league, instead of the big 3, big 4, whatever, just call them the big leagues right now.
Who is our big league?
We've got a top, and we've got, I can't clarify exactly what that term is going to represent, but it in fact does indicate the top half of the ladder of the standings. I feel comfortable calling top 4. We take Gale Force, Tempo, Roll20, and I think No Tomorrow. No Tomorrow's slot could be contested by somebody else, but that's the big leagues of North America right now, at least for me. I think I'm sticking with it.
All right, well, like I said, Team Freedom has to go up against one of the big leagues, Gale Force Esports, later this weekend. So a victory here would be great for momentum. And as I said, if they want to be in contention for one of those Western Clash spots, it's super important that they're able to get the win here over Superstars. But so too, Superstars need to start getting some wins to be able to stay in the middle of the pack for standings. Let's get into this matchup and hear from the players themselves, Superstars versus Team Freedom.
Superstars lost Goku, who was their best player, so they definitely needed to make more than one change. I don't agree with them role swapping Srey to flex and picking up a tank. I think that they should have just picked up another flex player, but I think Yoda was a really good addition to that team. Versus Superstars, they did lose a map to EID, and it doesn't seem like they're really comfortable in their roles yet. So I think it should be our series. We feel like we're on the rise, and we feel like we have top 3 potential.
After playing with Goku for a long time, even back on Goon Squad days, he's, in my opinion, the best mechanical melee player in the game. But now playing with Yoda's just teaching me so many other things about rotations and pickoffs that I feel like it's a great resource for Superstars, and we're really going to learn as much as we can from him. Team Freedom's looking a lot better with Cure. In scrims they seem very strong, and in their past games as well. Hopefully we just pull out the win though.
A lot of nice things Hosty said about Yoda, and I have to agree, man. Yoda was such a pleasant surprise at the mid-season brawl, came in, and his Malthael play in particular, but just everything that he has been able to do for the team in Superstars so far has been impressive.
Yeah, he is a very, I feel like he's been in North America a long while, but not always competing. He's kind of been known as what I like to call kind of like the solo queue warriors, the ones that are known very much so to be the top of the ladder, but never have that kind of, heavy intent. But once he's committed, he has shown that he does have a lot to provide in the world of competitive Heroes of the Storm. His game knowledge is just absolutely ridiculous, and it's nice to see that Superstars feels that they gained something out of this, because we all know that losing Goku, it was a huge setback. And it's nice to know that Yoda's at least near an even playing field.
But I want to also give some props to Hosty, because his switching over to fill kind of the void that was left by Faye and be able to pick up and carry on these ranged heroes has been impressive. His Genji has been really good. His Tracer has been a breath of fresh air. So Hosty 2 deserves some of the props too for where Superstars is still finding some success so far. But we're ready for the Battleground pool. Any thoughts where our first Battleground will be?
I mean, it's always the graphic cheats, Gilly. I'm going to come out with an obvious 100% accurate map evaluation there. and they always take it from me. It's going to be Superstars taking us to Braxis Holdout here for Game 1. Bans on Towers of Doom from Superstars and BOE there for Team Freedom.
Towers of Doom. Huh. Well, Freedom has banned Battlefield of Eternity. I believe that's consistent with what Freedom has been banning so far. The Towers ban is interesting to me.
Yeah, the Towers ban is a bit of a mix-up here, but I'm glad that it feels like in Phase 2, we're getting less of like a, this is just what's going to happen in the map bans. Every series, it seems like a bit more thought, a bit more effort given on how can we best our odds, increase the chances of us winning this game over an opponent here. So I just like any kind of mix-up, you know?
It is a favorite of Team Freedom, Towers of Doom is. So
Yeah.
in this case, it's kind of cool to see that some teams have been less about like, well, we don't really play that battleground. It's not so much a weakness as
Yeah.
it is we just want to take away a favorite of our opponents.
Yeah, you know, because we talked about it before where it's like with Dragonshire and that weird thing that's kind of happened with it coming and going so quick and so fast. And it's like, well, do you learn it with everybody else? Do you give up on it? I've always loved when teams are not afraid of any map, right? When you accept that your opponent's better than you, that's different than being afraid of the map. And so any kind of adjustments like this, considering the opponent that you're playing against, I love. Freedom.
This music is awesome.
It always catches us with a different one, you know? I don't know how they do this, but it always is like a little bit different than the last. New Barak has been the ban for Freedom.
Should note that Team Freedom has not played in Phase 2 on Braxis yet.
That is important. And it makes me want to, you know, go like, well, maybe that's going to benefit Superstars here, especially because it is their map ban. But I'm not sold. Superstars still has a lot to be gained here with the new adjustments that they have. Even though Yoda is an amazing offlane in the side soak, it just feels like they are not quite past the threshold that they need to be able to take on a team that's rising, like Team Freedom. But that's what we're here to find out. Removing the Genji was a nice step. You're not going to allow Kira to be on that flashy hero again. I said he felt like he stood out, but it was mainly, again, with a hero like Genji. And Talking Trees has admitted in the past, maybe it's not too hard to do that on Genji.
Oh, I saw an angel, and I did not think it was that angel. Lunara and Ariel. I would assume that Superstars will want Malthael for their solo lane in this game. They've already gotten Lunara and Ariel as a potential for one lane. Whatever it's a 2, a 3, a 4, that they have a battery to go along with an Ariel. They take that away too from the pairing of Ariel with Tassadar with something like a Vala.
I'm afraid of that, though. We saw Gale Force Esports commit to the Lunara Malthael, and without a reset, it didn't look very pretty. It just was like, okay, you're using all your resources. Granted, it did have a little bit more of a drastic downside with things like the Arthas also being cooldown dependent initiation, but just making sure you either get somebody to lock down the actual kill itself or making sure that your entire comp doesn't press R and need to get that fight in that exact moment. But we also have to realize that, you know, Freedom hasn't maybe had any prio on like things like Falstad, like we saw of the last series from No Tomorrow.
Stitches and Chromie for Team Freedom. Zelgrug and possibly Dansky for that Chromie. He played her once earlier on in Phase 1. It was a loss. But still having it Chromie, she is really good as a counter siege against whatever 4-man, 3-man is going to be trying to siege down with that Lunara and Ariel.
Illidan being hovered over for Superstars. That indicates that their matchup that they won is the solo, but it's not anything surprising. It's just like, okay, well, that Illidan does well into a Dahaka for the most part. Is a pretty solid lane matchup. In general, in most 1v1s, not totally sold on the ban, but I can understand it here from Superstars, again, with Tassadar over to Team Freedom. But on the side of Freedom, what do they want to remove? Do they, in fact, put in concentration onto a different support? Fear of it? Probably not. So then where do they go? What front line? Is it New Barak?
Malthael.
Still the Malthael. Again, I think I would have let it through. If you pick Lunara and you take Malthael, I go, who's going to actually get the kills? That is the first question I ask you. And oftentimes I don't really know who is that hero. Nothing fills the parameter of being the melee, but also getting those kills outside of things like Illidan or maybe Zeratul, but Zeratul's so cooldown focused, you don't want him to be the setup.
It may be more so the 1v1 matchup that they have issue with too. If they think that Yoda's going to be on Malthael in the solo lane, then they may feel like they can't deal with that matchup. If Freedom is maybe hoping that they can get to Haka here, his Touch of Death is detrimental to your self-healing that you have. So maybe it's from that too. Although in banning Malthael, I almost think that Team Freedom is guaranteeing that Superstars gets to Haka here as their solo laner, but they may have other plans.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I agree with you when it comes to like looking at the 1v1 aspect of Team Freedom's ban into the Malthael. But the one thing that makes me, I guess, feel like not as consistent on that, if that was any other map, I would say yes. But it feels like all teams in North America, even teams outside of the big league, are concerning the 3-2.
That's true.
You know, it's
Superstars.
It's very rare that you get a 1v1 on a map like Braxis. Granted, that can be implemented to other maps, but it hasn't made it way over to others nearly as heavily. So suddenly I go, that ban is a little bit more into the team fight than it is the laning phase. But if they do expect a raw one-on-one, then you are correct. That would be a nice adjustment for them in the removal. But the Murd and Chen, not too much CC on the other side. Makes a lot of sense to be able to pick yourself up a Chen.
Superstars have been playing a lot of Chen on Braxis holdout too. It's sort of the one hero that is flexed onto Srey, even though he's more of the ranged, a ranged flex role now too. So likely that is a Chen for Srey, although we still don't have a Yoda hero yet. We may see an additional flex from Superstars yet in this next match. Team Freedom with 5 seconds left. Last 2 picks. We're looking for the support. It's Collusion, so it's got to be Malfurion, although he's been playing some other things, and there is the Dahaka for the solo.
So still the Dahaka matchup into the Chen that Superstars took after the Malthael. Man, these solo laners, it's gonna be interesting how they decide to play it out. Again, because of the 3-2 being such a common thing here in North America. As the last pick, though, what backliner does Superstars want to be able to round out the damage? I'm trying to figure out if there's anything that stands out.
They played a very melee heavy, it was with Malthael. So it was the exact same composition that we see here, but with Malthael too. Not having that, Yoda has played a Falstad before. That might be a potential to have Falstad there. It might be Yoda, then again on Chen, if Srey has flexed into something else, maybe a Gul'dan, although that's pretty squishy, that you'd have a lot of wave clear.
It's not only squishy, just when he was on the Gul'dan, a lot of teams were just flat out picking on him, just focusing on him, just ignoring everything and moving past. And instead it's going to be the Zagara.
What do you think of that?
Well, if the argument was about getting picked on, that hero suffers from it even worse than the Gul'dan would. So my first thought goes, that makes me almost want that to be Yoda.
I think it will be Yoda.
Yeah, and then if I see Yoda as the side soak in an off lane, accenting into the 3-2, it's extremely, extremely powerful. The laning phase of Superstars is back to the macro focus like we expected of them, but didn't get last week. And I think it's pretty strong. Team Freedom has a little bit of a safer composition, a little bit more traditional, old school. It's got the TAS. I don't like their damage at all. Having a solo Chromie and a Tassadar is no damage at all. At least they have Twilight Dream to be able to make up for it. But I'm also not sold on Superstars when it comes to just play and execution. They have been very, very slow, very, very patient. And if Team Freedom finds a way to get an upper hand in the early levels of the game, I don't know if Superstars can adjust in the game fast enough to be able to stop it, even if they think that they have a safer or better draft.
Well, the game is ready. The gates are open. So let's get to game number 1 between the Superstars and Team Freedom. We're going to Braxis Holdout.
And it's going to start with Superstars in the blue. Oh, I forgot about Hosty on Zag. That's one of the old school. That's one of the old school heroes.
How dare we? So Yoda is playing the Lunar.
And then we got Srey onto the Chen. Also having Srey be on something a bit more comfortable with the secondary warrior, I think is going to work a lot better here for Superstars. But again, we do have Ariel there being played by Iacona. Murden's going to be played by Erho, and I think that's the end of all my lower thirds.
Great introduction.
Nailed it.
Team Freedom in the red. Collusion playing Malfurion, Zugrug on Stitches. Cure playing Dahaka, Tassadar played by Dansky, and finally Chromie played by Nasmus.
Did I get baited? Did I have all 5 go up and I just didn't see them? Okay, I was like, now you made me second guess myself.
One came up too, and then I don't know, like you started talking about other ones, so I don't know if maybe... I don't know. But everything was fine on my side, so maybe it was just you, you know?
It probably was. Probably was. You know, I was going to note that maybe we see the Moonfire coming out here, but it's in fact going to be Shando's Clarity or Collusion at level 1. First hook root combo. Root's at a half of an inch too far back, but something we have to keep in mind.
Especially Team Freedom showing us that a time trap does forecast your positioning to follow up with a hook.
Yeah, it's a really nice setup, allowing you to essentially just abuse the fact that anytime somebody sets up on a trap, it should be a free hook unless somebody wants a body block in front. And even if you want to do that, it's not a good deal. The only counterplay would be pick and cleanse, and Mario's got none, so it's a pretty sweet adjustment here for them.
As we're talking about Srey, and you mentioned that Chen is a comfort hero, and those statistics show why, but also this two-man lane is going to be rough because Superstars have Infest with Zagara, Elusive Brawler 2 with Chen to be able to soak up shots, even more so, despite, you know, the fact that he can just do that anyway with his drinking his fortifying brew. That top lane is going to do a lot, so the bottom lane of Team Freedom needs to step up.
Yeah, it's just kind of being a placeholder for now. Again, they have no they have no wave clear. You know, at what point can Freedom make up for this in the laning phase? They can't. Stitches doesn't have the wave clear. Not up until like maybe 7. He has enough wave clear, a threat on his own. We see the Chromie up on bottom with the Malfurion, but he went to Shando's Clarity. He doesn't have the ability to get rid of a minion wave very effectively at all. And now with that hook down, Yoda's still able to walk away because the damage here of Team Freedom is essentially non-existent.
Maybe because there's a Tassadar in the top lane, Team Freedom can bait a fight on the point and then bring Dahaka into stock and try to win fights off of that with the time traps on top of the vents as well. But you'd have to guarantee to get that too, because that would send Kier down away, and we've already seen how much Superstars is getting done here in the top lane.
Post 7, Kier will be able to deal with Chen a bit better as long as he moves into auto attack, reset onto his drag. Make sure you just couple, like, it's only like, what, 3 auto attacks into Chen's brew and you'd be in a position to be able to get the reset. Talking about Kier, he has found himself a Muradin. Ada, Stormbolt, and Dwarf tossed away, and they at least steal the camp here for Team Freedom. So showing some kind of abuse there of the global like you were talking about. And Lunara getting caught.
Team Freedom getting that pick, getting the pressure too in the bottom lane is exactly what they needed to do with the Chen Zagara in the top lane. Starting to get ahead in experience too, and taking out these towers will help that out even more so.
You see that one moment where things kind of crumble for Superstars over that camp here, and now Team Freedom is doing a good job of getting punishment in every area. Again, think about a minute ago. It was Superstars just controlling the top, controlling the mid, or controlling the bottom half of the map, and it was like, where did they make the move? But that was a nice job by Freedom, not going with traditional laning, going blow for blow, going and, you know, just changing the circumstance of the fight, and they found themselves a small win. But they're going to need more here. They've got the 42%. The skirmish is continuing on. Now,
I know that this is more of the standard in North America to get Mobius Loop over Dragon's Eye, but what do you think of it in this case where so much is banking on the Chromie to be able to get the damage in these picks? Well, you know what? She proves she's got it enough.
She's proved she's got the damage. All right. Wow. Oh, man. Walking away saying calculator there. So I'm torn. Like, I want to say that I like the idea of going with CDR based on the fact that I have no wave clear and I need to get rid of the minions. But then I go, well, Malf could have made up for that with Moonfire, so do I really like to see that decision? I feel like if Malf goes Moonfire, I want the bonus damage. But when he doesn't commit to it, then why not go for the CDR? Even trying to abuse the Shandos, just throw Dragon's Breath everywhere, I guess. But it mainly comes down to the Moonfire. I think if I see the Moonfire, I'm like, oh, I do not want to see anything else. I really want to make sure we have that single target damage to be effective.
Well, Team Freedom are eking ahead with the beacon progress ever so slightly, 82%. And they're bullying off members again. Root's always there to follow up after a hook. Here it comes in, and that is the end of Yoda on Lunara. 100% enemy Zerg starting to push up in the top lane.
So funny just how one burrow in that stage of the game has essentially crippled Superstars to never restore the momentum they had into the laning phase. And, you know, understandably so. Freedom's composition is a bit squirrely, a little bit harder to understand. Nobody takes a fight as straightforward as you would expect. A lot of it relying on the poke of Chromie and the reliability of a hook.
It's important for Team Freedom to apply this kind of pressure to win the early beacons because of the Zagara factor. With Nidus Network later on, they do not want to be behind structurally. So Team Freedom have their slowing stands down. They did hit a hook on Sray, but he's staying fairly strong with his brew. Gonna walk right into a Dragon's Breath.
Yeah, that Dragon's Breath, if that had been a squishier hero, I was like, man, that was some next level predictions right there.
Yeah, the placement was excellent.
And now land, the turret still had a fraction of an inch of HP, but Nasmus and the rest of the members of Team Freedom are going to be able to move out. They will, without a doubt, have a large 10 spike over Superstars here. I expect them to be able to pick up the bottom fort with that. Cure under a little bit of pressure, but it's a Zag Chen. They aren't known for their damage.
No lockdown there to hold down Dahaka. He's got his essence. He's all right. Just hanging out, holding the place down, holding the lane down while the rest of his team rotates and gets the mercenary camps.
This is where I hope we see Team Freedom do what No Tomorrow didn't. And that's just go to bottom fort right now, start wailing away. When you hit the 10 spike, secure the fort. When that gets done, start looking at the keep. Just go. There, you know, it's into a Zach comp, so it's only going to make it even better. They know the fort is going to be free, so this part isn't that impressive. It's whether or not they move past that onto the keep, because most of the time you go boss, and No Tomorrow is no exception. Everyone gets distracted by that word, but it's one that we try not to say until past 16-minute mark, because he just, or she, I don't really know. Either way, they are just not that intimidating.
No, Team Freedom,
Please don't.
They want to fight. They want to battle.
Just
They're heading up. They've got a Gorge. Ooh, this is a Gorge game.
They can start the battling. That's okay. I just don't want to see the boss being started.
Nice Stormbolt, slows Cure down. Team Freedom in position, want to push out these lanes so that they can be in a prime spot to get the beacons as soon as they spawn. But Sray, because of that rotation from Team Freedom, is able to clear out the mercenary camp and keep the fort alive.
Yeah, it's just one of those moments where it's how much can you get. I respect the ability to rotate up and look for a gank, but it just comes down to the reliability of the gank. You know, it's just very unrealistic to be able to get that. And, well, even if, let's say, you get the kill, you 100% are sure that you can pick up the fort. You aren't positive you can look up for the kill. Team Freedom now transitions down bottom. They are still going to be able to get the fort in the window of their 10 spike. It's just, again, they couldn't cycle out and pressure anything else. They did everything right according to their plan. It's just that they didn't get the kill. And again, it's how much can you rely on getting versus how much do you want to be able to obtain.
Heroic abilities now available for Superstars. Nidus Network already instantly being placed down. Detainment Strike throws back Zugrug. Storm Earth and Fire for Chin 2. No Wandering Keg shenanigans. Leaping Strike for Lunara. So now Team Freedom trying to set up around this top beacon. Both Dahaka and Zagara not present at the start of this fight, but have the Nidus Network up there. Here is the Gorge from Zugrug. Stormbolt stops him from getting back even further. Stray's just gonna jump on out.
I was gonna say it's on to Chen.
Yoda?
You're necessarily your target there, but the auto attacks, once that's done, that should be a kill. Cure comes in, not even needed. Gets a drag. Nope, again, not needed. 2 kills for nothing. Freedom is looking confident. Now, they cycle towards bot. This is Hosey, he picks up that shrine. You see him scuttling away, trying to get to the Nidus Network. And because, again, when the forts are gone on a map like this, anytime you have a Zagara, you always want to be winning. You can snowball, you struggle when you're behind. Top Nidus has already been cleared. Only one still stands up on bottom. And even that one's not that effective. He's got to put him into an area of fog.
Hook.
If they're going to stick around.
Slowing Sands behind Stray here. Uses the Storm, Earth, and Fire. Freedom are happy with that.
Yep, they're just going to walk right on out. This is one of those disengages that you aren't walking around with a frown. It's a huge smile saying, just wait for this to be done, and then we want to fight.
Dahaka is continuing to push the bottom lane, getting Team Freedom closer and closer to 13. Except Chromie, of course, because she already grabbed that at level 11. It is timeout in case of the Chin dive, possibly, even a Muradin later on too. Just being able to stop any of the damage on you for a little bit of time, forcing your opponents to look for another target, and that may be just enough time for your team to come in and posture around you.
Zugrug. They want somebody. Who's the lucky winner? Who's going to get the rando hook over the wall? Chen, is that you? Nope, nobody's the lucky winner this time. Yoda's actually even questioning if he wants to move up. Pure got interrupted on his drag, popped the adaptation. The fight's going to unload here.
There was the timeout just for a brief amount of time. Twilight Dream went down, and that's to the demise of Muradin and Srey. 2 kills while the Zerg barrel down the bottom lane towards Superstars Keep.
The hook on the Hosty, the slowing sands, the Dragon's Breath, and another kill. They have got a lot of things working for them, so much so Freedom might look to end this game.
That bug got squashed. The best news for Superstars is that they have lower respawn timers. Chen will be back in a few. He's up now.
Even if they don't
still there too.
Even if they don't end here, this is a winning call. I like this from them. Like, just all in, ignore your opponents, because then, even then, without a mule on the other side of the table, it's just a 10% core inevitably would be a win. They get it, not even worried about the Zerg rush. Freedom's got game 1.
11-minute, 19-second game for Team Freedom. Things looked good at the very start for Superstars with their Zagara and their Chen, but one mercenary camp, one stock from Dahaka was all it takes to send their Superstars bags packing, scrambling to find an answer.
Yeah, and I feel like that was, I can understand why that happens. You know, we see it on Dragon Share a lot. A team who should have a winning laning phase, and they go, I went out a little bit too far in this area, and then suddenly everything falls apart because you try to stop the bleeding. Stop the bleeding breaks the rotations you're used to, and then suddenly the guy where you're like, okay, we're going bottom now. He's like, I'm still up in top because I was here for experience, and then you're 20 seconds behind the next set. It's a staggered, slow, and adjusting thing that eventually you can get used to, but it does feel like one thing was all it took for Superstars, and they can never find that rhythm back to it anymore. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Chen Zach, not a traditional laning matchup that you would normally talk about, but it is still a respectable one. The amount of pressure they should be able to apply to the structures early on, you saw it again, 1 through 3, but they couldn't find a way to come back, grab their breath, gain control again, and Freedom just never let go.
I am a little worried that Superstars did lose that game so handily versus Team Freedom now, just because it is the battleground choice and the primary choice of Superstars. They picked it as their game number 1. They had won both versus No Tomorrow and Even in Death on it. So it has been sort of a stronghold where Superstars could hopefully rely on getting at least one victory for them. So now looking at that, Team Freedom able to do what they needed to do without even something like their standard Genji and Diva, right? It was a more traditional comp, albeit maybe light on damage, but a lot focused on Nasmus to be able to do that damage, and he delivered with his Chromie.
Yeah, and like, it is intimidating, you know, just because the map, and even looking at those drafts, again, like, neither team had what you would look at and be like, this is insane. How do you stop this? You know, nothing major to stand out, but the fact that Team Freedom was able to dominate like that, and again, they don't have any of those things, and both were, you know, I would even, like I said, I think levels 1 through 9, I actually like how Superstars could have played it out, but they lost the laning phase that hard. It just makes me very scared going forward for the rest of the series that, you know, when you pick Chen, you think about the early game that they can bully, and it's like, we didn't get that for even a second in that last game. So now it's like, well, how do you stop this, you know? And I think drafts has got to be the first place to go, because it feels like they're torn on, like, do we stick with the new role swap, and again, like, things that they've been practicing, because like, you can only learn that new role a couple heroes at a time. So you just stick those and just screw the composition, or do you say, we need you to try this, and we just think that the rest of the 4 of us can make up for it enough? And it seems like they stick with the first option for now.